That guy is really good. You see him and where he is alongside the top 5 prospects. According to NHL Network, he led the Q rookies in points and shots on goal. First team QMJHL All-Star, a big-time get. And he has tremendous confidence. Look at what we found on Twitter. Helene St. James loved Philip Zadina's swagger. Said he's going to make Montreal and Ottawa pay for passing on him. Quote, "I was telling my agent, if they will pass on me, I'm going to fill their nets with pucks. I want to prove to Detroit that they make a pretty good decision." The guy who made that decision joins us right now, the general manager of the Detroit Red Wings, Ken Holland. When you hear that quote from your talented rookie, what does it make you think?
Well, obviously he's got a lot of confidence, and that's an important part of being a great goal scorer in the National Hockey League. So hopefully, certainly our scouts and our people were excited when he was on the board. We picked him, and looking forward to watching him score some goals throughout his career.
Kenny, we talk a lot about, when we look at lists of prospects and when teams have an opportunity on the draft board, whether you take for need, you select for need, you take the best player. You were in an interesting situation. There was a couple of good defensemen sitting there at 6. Zadina falls there. Was that a situation where you just decided, hey, we have to take the best player available here?
Yeah, EJ, definitely. I think, obviously one of the areas that we're trying to overhaul over time here is our defense position. We've drafted a lot of defensemen in the last 2-3 years. There were some good defensemen on the board, but we think Zadina has a chance to be a guy that can score a lot of goals throughout the National Hockey League career. And in a league where it's hard to find people that can score goals, getting a guy that we think is going to be able to produce offense we felt was very, very important.
You have been so important to the success of the Red Wings, starting as a scout there in the mid-'80s and working for decades to elevate that franchise. How valuable is continuity in the NHL when it comes to excelling as a franchise?
Well, I think it's very important. I think anytime you've got a business, it's important to have everybody to be on the same page, so that you're headed in the right direction. And we've obviously had a lot of people here that have been here a long time. Jim Devillano, Håkan Andersson, our chief scout in Europe, has been here a long time as well. So I think continuity is very important.
Kenny, you mentioned drafting defensemen and trying to overhaul the back end there with the departures of guys like Nick Lidstrom. I mean, I remember joking with you, you never replace those guys, so you're trying to kind of just upgrade that as time goes on. But you've had a couple of guys in Dennis Chalowski and also with Philip Ronick. These are guys you've drafted at a high level. Where are they in their development right now?
Well, we're gonna give them a long look here in training camp to see if they're ready to play in Detroit. We bought out Xavier Ouellette this summer, made a decision to buy him out. So there's one spot for sure open for a young defenseman, along with Joe Hicketts and Sulak. I'm looking really probably coming into training camp that those 4 young defensemen are going to be given an opportunity to earn a spot in our team. Hronek had a great year in the American League last year, was selected to the American Hockey League All-Rookie team. Dennis Chalowski had a really good year in Portland. I think he had 70-plus points with Portland of the Western Hockey League. So they're two good defensemen. They're both mobile, puck-moving defensemen that can join the rush, the way the game is played today. So we think that those Hronek and Chalowski, the names that you just mentioned, they're 2 young defensemen that we think are going to be a part of rebuilding our back end.
And when we think about how accurate your club has been in terms of identifying talent, certain names come to mind. Pick 210 in the '99 draft, Henrik Zetterberg goes on to have such a storied career. We think about just the remarkable number of late-round picks who've panned out for the Wings. Why has that been the case?
Well, certainly a little bit of luck. I mean, players of that stature, if you think about the Red Wings being around for 90 to 100 years, to have players like Zetterberg and Datsuk, 2 of the greatest Red Wings ever in the 6th and 7th rounds, part of it's luck, but I also think it's philosophy. In terms of types of players we were looking for, players with hockey sense, players with talent. And I think we were fortunate. One of the things that we've been fortunate through the years, obviously we're in a rebuild mode now, but for a long period of time, we had a really good team, so we could have lots of patience with our players, and we could leave them. I think Henrik Zetterberg was the Rookie of the Year in the Swedish Elite League, and we made a decision to leave him for one more year in Sweden, and he ended up becoming the most valuable player in the Swedish Elite League before we brought him over. So certainly when you're in a rebuild mode like we are, the players are brought along quicker, and sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes patience is the better thing. So I think there were some factors involved. Håkan Andersson obviously made those selections, and he's been a big part of us having success in the later rounds. Johan Franzen in the third round is another example. Thomas Holmstrom in the 11th round. So if you're going to be a good team, you need to not only draft good high, you need to find players deeper in the draft, and that was something that we took great pride in for a long time. And one of the things that we're trying to really have a focus on here going forward is not only, like I said, trying to be successful at the top end of the draft, but finding players that can play on the team and give your organization more depth deeper into the draft.
Kenny, what are the biggest things that have changed in scouting and development during your career?
Well, obviously, first thing is the number of people. I've had this conversation to Håkan Andersson at times. In Europe, it just there was a time when everybody, some teams didn't have a scout in Europe. Some teams had a scout. I'm talking 20 years ago. Well, everybody now we've got a full-time scout in Russia, a full-time scout in the Czech Republic, a full-time scout in Finland, and Håkan Andersson in Sweden, and we send Yuri Fischer over on a regular basis to go look at the league. So there's just I think organizations all over, whether it's I'm using Europe as an example, but there's more scouts, there's more concentration, there's more in-depth work in evaluating players, more competition, and I think obviously with the rules changed package in 2005. Size isn't probably as big a factor today as it was 20 years ago. I think that's one of the things that probably we, going back to Zetterberg and Datsuk were smallish players on their day, but we took the smallish players and they were talented and they turned out to be great great Red Wings, great players for our organization. So I just think that more scouts, more back checking, and just there's more involved in the process of making the selections today than there was 15, 20 years ago.
A lot has changed, but you remain elite, and we appreciate you joining us. Good luck to you and the team this year.
Thanks, guys.
Ken Holland, one of the most respected GMs, and he's been busy over the last 2 seasons. EJ and I noting that the Wings have more picks than anyone, coming off that quarter century of going to the playoffs every year and the cups and all the celebration for Hockey Town. There is that idea, and he touched on it, that this is a rebuild. The rebuild is underway.
Yeah, there's no question about it. It was something that had to be done. They had a great run with Nick Lidstrom and Yzerman, Fedorov, all those great players. But it's time, and they're well into it now, and we'll see some of the fruits of that this season.